Hi, and welcome back to the Valley Mills Christian Church podcast. I am Joe McNeil, the spiritual growth coordinator.
I'm Mr. Davis, the student minister.
And I'm Mark Stair, the worship minister.
And we're so happy that you joined us today. I know that it's been a while, and can I just say on behalf of the three of us, we really missed you.
We did.
We did.
Quite a
We
bit.
did.
Yeah.
A lot.
Hurts,
Take our word for it.
Hurts right in the heart. That's what
It's so good.
Yeah, but we're here now, and that's all that matters. Today, here, this moment in time and space and history, we are now united once again through the magic of the internet and podcast hosting websites. Here we are. So today we are going to talk about getting connected. As you may have seen from our sign outside at the church, small group season has started once again.
Whoop, whoop.
The winter session, as we call it. And we had a pretty good turnout as far as people getting signed up. So we kind of wanted to talk twofold here about being connected, getting connected, and why it's important. Because sadly, there's a lot of people who don't sign up for groups like that. And I know that groups aren't for everybody. I can be pretty cantankerous myself, and I understand that sometimes you just don't want to be around people. But there are good, very valid and logical reasons why you should join groups. And the awesome thing about Valley Mills is that not only do we have the home life groups where you might share some food and some fellowship and some good Bible study, but we have straight church-based Bible studies as well that happen. And then we have quite a handful of good affinity groups or special groups that we call them, such as basketball and sewing, and there's a board game group. So there's a lot of different groups that get together and just connect and do that kind of stuff together. I'm going to try really hard not to say do life because I think it's pretty.
Let's do life.
Let's do life together. It sounds like you're both going to prison. So
So what are you in for?
board games, actually. So what do you guys think? All three of us actually this session have started our own group. Mine hasn't started yet. Ezra hasn't started yet, but I know
Actually, mine starts tonight.
Oh, hey.
There we go.
Ezra's
Slap it,
group.
Jules. Anyway,
But
sorry.
anyway, what do you guys think as far as groups go? Like, why is it important? Why is it something that people should do?
Well, I think that when you have all the stuff that the church has to offer on Sunday mornings, or even our special events like the ice cream social or light the night, or just different stuff, it's easy to kind of be a part of that and be kind of not background noise, because I'm not saying like you're in, like, people that are behind the scenes aren't like important, because those events and those things wouldn't happen if those people weren't in place. But this kind of takes everything and kind of flips it on head to where you're in a setting where you can have a conversation that you most likely wouldn't have on Sunday mornings. So I could very easily have a conversation sitting down with somebody or with other people that's very intellectual, very intentional, very on point, and allow myself to be more vulnerable with those talks in life group. Whereas in a larger church, like in a larger group setting, as far as like the church picnic and all that running around, or even on Sunday mornings when we're in here worshiping and hearing Bob's message, it kind of takes away from the being kind of peeling away. Like life groups, that's what I mean by, if that makes any sense. It peels away all the bigness of it. That's a word that I've kind of made up, but it peels away all like the big idea things, and it really narrows it down to the heart of what things are going on. Like for instance, this series is worldview. It has a lot to do with what we believe and why we believe, and I feel that it's not going to happen, and those conversations on why we believe are not going to happen on those big ticket items, but on a smaller scale in life groups. So that's really why life groups are important to me, is so that I can kind of converse with people that I don't normally talk to, and don't normally get a chance to talk to on Sundays because I'm going 20 different directions. So
Yeah. And I think life groups are important. And it was my own personal experience that I hadn't really been part of a life group or a small group growing up. I know our church had them, but uh, I found out now. I mean, we just my wife and I, JJ, just hosted our first life group at our apartment this past Sunday, and it was amazing. And I realized that it was something that I'd actually kind of lacked in a sense, or just was missing out on. I would say the biggest thing is that um, the importance of meeting together in a community. I mean, we see that on Sundays, and that's where we kind of come together on Sunday mornings and have fellowship and worship together and listen to the message together. And I know that the term, that we are brothers and sisters in Christ is kind of thrown around a little bit in the Christian community, or people outside the Christian community have heard that term. But brothers and sisters, I mean, when we really think about it, it's a term that we use a lot when it comes to family. And I guess in the perfect picture of what a family would be, and I know not all of us have had the fortunate or the fortune of having a well intact family, but I believe a good intact family are those that spend time with one another, that they are there for each other. And this is very important for support, to build one another up. And how can we do that if we're not engaged in one another's lives? How can we do that if we don't know what's going on in each other's lives? And I think small groups and life groups have this very intentional just thing about them, where it's an environment where we can come together and be there for each other. And I'm sure there's many other good reasons why to have a life group, but that's just one that's been on my mind right now. So.
And speaking of that, as far as like family goes and things like that, sometimes you don't live close to family, or you really just kind of want that feeling, and you join a small group to kind of simulate that, and it helps, especially those that are estranged from family, or if you're like me, and maybe someone out there is along the same lines as this, but I came from a family that was pretty big. I had 6 brothers and sisters, and my dad, when he was around, was very grouchy and hard to be around. So he kind of stayed to himself. And my mom was taking care mostly of, I have 2 brothers that are mentally handicapped. So they took up a lot of her attention and everything too. We didn't go anywhere. We didn't do anything. We didn't have a lot of money, especially with like 7 kids. So we just didn't do family activities. It wasn't a thing that was for us. I had friends and we went out and did stupid stuff as friends, but wasn't really like a family so much as just like a pack of wild dogs, as opposed to a family. So kind of anecdotally humorous is that when I got married, my wife's family was very close. And so even to this day, when we go visit with her family, a lot of times they'll sit around and just talk. And it drives me bananas because I don't understand it. It's a very foreign concept to me to sit around and just kind of chit chat. I'm like, well, are we going to watch something? Are we going to play a game? What's happening? No, we're just sitting here talking. And a lot of times it's the same conversation that they've had over and over and over again about different things that they remember, different times in their life. And that's probably extremely normal for most families. But for me, I don't get that. I don't understand that. So when I come together in a small group and I'm with people who I'm not, I don't know maybe as much, there is a lot of that weirdness because it's like we're getting together to talk for a specific reason. And that kind of helps that there's a topic. But I'm everything in me doesn't really mesh well with sitting in group settings with like that. So I've had to learn over the years to see the benefits of it. And just because early on in my younger years, I didn't have that, doesn't mean that I shouldn't have that now. And there's a ton of benefits in it. Your small group is, in a lot of times, your first line of defense when something goes wrong. You calling your small group to pray about it or to talk talk with you about it. And sometimes it's just hard to make friends in church, because service is happening and you've got a few minutes before and after. But unless you really join a group, you don't really get to know anybody. And I'm definitely a person who would rather not get to know people if I lived in my own sinful human way. That's what I would prefer. That's how I was raised. Leave me alone. I'm going to go do my own thing. But that's not what God wants. And that's something that changed with me when I came to know Christ and when I got more involved in church. So I think as a takeaway, as far as joining the small groups, there's a lot of benefits to it. There's a lot of things that you gain from it. And a lot of it is a very family-based feeling. So maybe that's something that you're not cool with. Maybe that's something that is hard for you. So what are some recommendations that you guys might have for people that are reluctant? And what are some other things you've heard as far as people being reluctant to join groups?
Myself, or for me, I was kind of reluctant to even have one. I know we kind of wanted to start one during the first, I guess during the fall when we had our first round of small group signups or life group signups. I keep going in between life groups and small groups. I just call them life groups.
They're both the same.
Yeah.
It's interchangeable.
So,
Tomato.
yeah. Just because we didn't know if the space available in our apartment would be able to accommodate the number of people if we did have end up having a large number. And honestly, we really didn't expect to have that many just because there's not that many. Our life group is for young adults. So if you're like between the ages of 18 to around your 30s, or that would make you, I guess, we would invite you to join our life group. And we kind of target that age for a reason, just because, I'm a young adult myself. My wife is, and so we want to connect with that demographic. And we know that this particular demographic of young adults is across the board, across the nation, is missing in church. And so we kind of want to bring that back. But I will come back to the point I was trying to make earlier, is that we didn't know if we could accommodate that with food or with parking spaces. There's a lot of different variables that I was very unsure of that we could even have it
logistically.
Yeah, logistically. Yeah. So, of course, like I wanted to do one, but we just decided to do it, and we had a really good turnout. Now, we had some people there that even said, they were reluctant, for a different reason than I was. They were reluctant because they honestly had never really been to a life group before, or a small group. And some of them have barely even been in the church and there's many reasons for that. And it's just, it was kind of surprising, especially to my wife, because usually the small groups, she had grown up going to small groups, and usually people in there, in her experience, were people that went to church or had been her friends for the longest time. But what was really awesome and amazing about this life group that we had on just this past Sunday was that a lot of these people are either new to the faith, or they don't really know what all Christianity is all about. And they're all coming together in this one place where, we have a lesson. We're going through the study of Grace is Greater by Kyle Idleman. And what's just really neat about this is that I think grace is a fundamental aspect of Christianity that I think is that should be touched on quite a lot, and is touched on quite a lot in our sermons and everything, because God is grace. It was manifested in the giving of his son Jesus to die for us on the cross and forgiveness of our sins. And it's just a powerful concept, and I'm glad we're talking about it for this thing, because with all these young adults that have all these questions, I think grace is something that needs to be emphasized or brought to light in their lives. And I think we just have a great opportunity to reach them. And I just love the company that we had there, and just the conversations we had, and we can't wait till the next time. These are coming. It's not just my own words. They can't wait to come back next Sunday. Even though they said a week ago they wouldn't be able to. They probably would have never come to something like this. And it was awkward, like you said, like a bunch of actually like strangers coming together in one room and just sitting around a table. Yeah, sitting around a table together, eating food, and it was awkward. There was this very awkward silence, which to me, I mean, it wasn't awkward to me just because I kind of expected it, and but to everyone else, I'm sure. And they even said it's like it was just a little bit awkward. But then once we started sharing things about each other, and that's when everything kind of got more. The conversations got deeper. Then we went to our lesson, and then after the lesson, I expected everybody to kind of leave or trickle out, but people stayed, and we just talked more. But yeah, that's just.
So you got some people that are reluctant because they don't know people, they don't know the house they're going to. Hosts might feel reluctancy as far as how are we going to put this stuff together, things like that. But it sounds like there's a lot of overcoming in that, and we'll kind of talk more about that in a minute. But let's keep talking more about the pitfalls or the hurdles that people are trying to get through to get to small group.
I think for me, I believe that wholeheartedly. It's kind of a vulnerable thing. Like you wrestle with vulnerability. Because it is hard to walk into somebody's home and that you really rarely don't know. I mean, you really don't know it at all.
It's a good choice of words, vulnerability.
Yeah, and it really like, okay, so I'm going to walk in. Like for me, I make situations awkward. Like I can just walk into a room and make situations awkward. That's just who I am. But on the same sense though, it's especially for us three. I mean, we've done life groups together. Joe and I have, but to kind of open up your house and your home, and you're letting people into your house where you potentially walk around in your underwear, or you potentially
not during small group,
no, but like that's where you go. Like, I mean, for me, like if I let somebody into my house, that's huge. Because I mean, we live in a day and age where there's psychos. There's people that we need to love, but there's psychos out there, and I'm not.
Well, it's a real Patch Adams thing. If you ever seen that movie, Patch Adams with Robin Williams, where they tried to do this free hospital, and they weren't going to let anybody in, and they were going to take care of everybody. And then unfortunately, they let in like a psychopath, and he ended up killing this lady who was close to him, and he really questioned, like, what am I doing?
Right.
And it's sad because you want to be open and available, but there's a real danger of like, who am I letting in my house?
Right.
Again.
And so for instance, I mean, this time around, I only have Danielle and I open it up to young couples with kids, because Danielle and I have one kid, and we just. I mean, that's what we're the demographic that we're in. Like that's the time frame that we're in, and then so. Take, for instance, there's one couple that we have coming actually to our house tonight. I've gotten really, not really close, but close enough to kind of get into his life. And he's gone through a time and a half of, kind of wondering where he's at. I'm not going to name any names, but we've gotten close enough to where I remember them first coming to our house. And actually, I had to rely on Danielle to kind of be the opening kind of welcome thing, because I was actually out of town. We did a life group session during the summer one year, and this couple came over to our house and was very. It was I knew her older sister through school, and like. But I had no clue who this cat was. Like I had no clue if he was going to be a psycho or anything like that. But it's all hinges on vulnerability. And
turns out he was.
No, actually, it was really cool because him and I kind of hit it off really well, because it's almost like we're dating. He'd get a kick out of this, but him and I hit it off really well because we kind of share some of the same likes and dislikes on
like noodles and chili. For example.
Noodles and chili. Yeah, we debated on that. But no, and Danielle and the wife, the other wife, hit it off really well. And the thing about it is, and we talked about this in length, probably towards the middle of that life group season, is it really takes vulnerability to come into a new life group, both hosting and coming in. So if you're kind of on the fence about either hosting or coming into a new life group, this is what I want to say is, be bold, because even though you might have insecurities about coming to a stranger's house, I guarantee you, if you haven't met your host family or your life group leader, or wherever you're at, chances are they have some vulnerability issues, not vulnerability issues, but some reservations about it too. They're starting a new one, and they don't know what curriculum they're going to do. They're, what do we feed? I don't want to put peanut butter out there, because what if they're allergic to peanut butter? What if they don't like sloppy joes? I mean, you could get yourself caught up into these what ifs, like, instead of getting down to the nitty gritty and really creating a relationship.
Yep.
So that's what I would say is just be bold. And it's nerve wracking. It's easier said than done to be bold. But really, really hone in on the aspect of it, of why we are doing life group. And then hopefully, knock on wood, that we can, that
Head
group
made out of wood.
I know, right? Hopefully that during that time you could be a little bit more vulnerable with the leader, with the people that are in it, and form a relationship.
So some of the other things that I've heard from people are time commitments. Oh, I can't make it. I've heard a group say that, oh, well, there's not enough groups out there that support children, even though there are some, but there aren't a lot. And that's the thing too, is that if we had more people that would step up to lead or host. I've talked to people who, well, I wouldn't mind teaching one, but I don't want people coming over. Or, hey, I wouldn't mind having people over. I love having that. Maybe they have that spiritual gift of hospitality, but I'm not a leader, so I wouldn't be. And we want to try and connect people. So that's something that I'm going to be focusing on with the next session. If that's you and you're listening, if you want to host and or teach, we can partner you up. There are easy solutions to some of the problems that I think people have with it. But there definitely is an issue with vulnerability, going to a new house, people you don't know, opening up and sharing. I know that's a difficult thing for me. I have some trust issues with some issues that happen with me in my life. So it's hard for me to open up, because I don't want people to get at me or have something to use against me, kind of thing. I'm one of those guys that when I'm moping around, I don't want people to talk to me about it, kind of thing, in a weird way. But I have my own imperfections, and that's that. And it's hard for me to open up about a lot of that stuff, which I'm sure it is for a lot of you guys. So hopefully you can overcome some of this and really see the benefit. I'm going to put it together like this. I was talking to my children the other day about how Satan works. And when you look at a lion, and the Bible actually attributes Satan as like a lion, roaring around seeking its prey. And if you think about it, if you see those old nature videos, the lion doesn't go after the strongest gazelles. It doesn't go after like the pack or the herd. It doesn't run in there like it's 10-pin alley and it's a giant bowling ball. It prowls around the outskirts and it waits until there's one that's slow or sickly or young, and it's by itself. And that's how a lot of predators work. You look at some of these horrible stories in the news of kidnappings and things like that, and it's always like they wait for someone to be alone, because they know they can't stand against a group. They can't stand against something that's a pack, that's unified, that's together, that's looking out for each other. They wait and they prey on that. So if you're not joining a small group, you're like that sickly or young gazelle that is just waiting to be picked off. Because here's what happens. You're not connected with people. Maybe you show up to church to make yourself feel better. Maybe you want to make a little mention or a little note, hey, I went to church, I'm a good person, everything's fine. But stuff starts happening. Life happens. Inevitably, something bad is going to happen, or you're going to struggle with something, or something is going to come at you. Who do you have? You're going to come to church and you're trying to, open up to people in the middle of service, which isn't impossible, but it's awkward. Do you make a big deal? Do you go up and ask for prayer in front of people? maybe you have to at that point, and it's just an even bigger hurdle. But if you're part of a small group where you're in this tight little knit community, and this is the whole entire reason we do these, is if you belong to a group, a little pod of people, a little community, you can talk to those people. If you can open up your trust window for just a few people, then you have somebody there. And maybe it's something you can't commit to all the time. Maybe your work doesn't permit it. But there's groups out there and there's things that you can join and do. I would recommend moving obstacles out of the way to get to it, because when you're connected, you're less vulnerable in a much more serious way. You might think it's scary to join a group, to go to some stranger's house or meet with strangers, but I tell you what, it's 100 times more scary to get picked off by that lion. Guarantee you. So hopefully you'll see what we're talking about here and you'll really join that. So, and maybe you're not ready to join a group where you're going to talk about a Bible lesson, but there's other groups that meet at the church. There's basketball, there's the board game group, there's sewing, there's all kinds of different things here. And maybe you like something that isn't really offered here. The greatest thing, I think, one of the greatest things about Valley Mills is that our church doors are open a lot, and our building is used so much, like to capacity. We have this giant log calendar that Tanya keeps track of, all of these things that happen during the day to make sure we're not overbooking, but it's full. It's full. There's a ton of stuff here, and we're welcoming more. That's the thing. The building needs to be used. It's not, if it's not used, it's just a building, right? But if it's a place where people can get together, then it's a home, or it's a hangout, or it's something important to somebody. We attribute that value to it when we make it into something. So whether you are looking for a group to start, to host, to join, maybe you've got something that you're interested in that you want to see if there's any other like-minded people out there. And sometimes it doesn't work. Sometimes we try groups out and it just doesn't fit. There's not people there that do that. But don't be disheartened. Don't let that discourage you from joining a group, because, again, it's vitally important to make sure that you're a part of a community like that. It's very imperative. I think I can't stress the urgency enough that it's important to be connected to people who are watching your back, but who are also going to call you out on stuff too. I think a lot of us, in our prideful way, we like to be alone because we don't want people to call us out on the stuff that we're doing too. So let that be a conviction to someone out there. You maybe, whoever. Anyway, closing thoughts, guys. Small groups. We talked a lot about it here, but good or bad? Should we keep them?
I think we should keep them. I think, honestly, just try it. I mean, if you're on the fence about things, just step out a little out of your comfort zone. Try a little bit. If you like it, then stay at it. If you feel like you've gotten burnt, then come talk to one of us, and we'll kind of feel the waters, and then allow you to talk it over with somebody, whether it be us three, whether it be somebody at church. Talk it over with somebody and figure out what group you would fit better in. So don't just throw in the towel after one or two tries. Seek help, and then, because like Joe said, it's about a community. It's not about who has the best life group, or who can get the most life groups going. It's all about community, and it's all about getting each other within the church on fire and on that walk with Christ. So don't give up on yourselves. Don't give up on us. Don't give up on the life groups that are offered. So,
and I think whether you're leading a small group or you want to join a small group, I just want to point out that that your presence there, even though it's our own tendency, and I think it's a lie from Satan that we feel that we're not, worth anything, or we're just whatever. But your presence around other people, when you make yourself available to people and open, people value that. Like, you are valued. You have, from being created in the image of God, we have infinite value through that. Just knowing that truth alone. So whether you're leading it, I mean, that's amazing. Like people like want that, like they appreciate that. And if you're attending, other people there that are thinking probably maybe the same thing as you, well, maybe I don't fit or belong in here, then what you may find is that, if everyone's kind of thinking that, but then you realize that you actually do fit in, like these people are not so different than myself. We actually like connect on so many different levels that I would have never guessed. And once that realization comes, I think God uses that, to His glory ultimately. And I think it's a very beautiful thing, and it's not like forced. I think anything that happens just because us being people, we're kind of hesitant to kind of go into something that's not real, because I think in our world today, it's so hard to find people or organizations or groups that are genuine and authentic, and we're just like, this is just going to be like another like hangout thing where no one really cares for one another. But no, that's not the truth about these life groups at all. We actually care deeply about each other, and I think it's worth a go, worth a try. So yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for listening. And now that the holidays are over, we should be back to regularly churning these out. So feel free to put some comments down below if you want, and reach out to us if you have any questions, but be happy to plug you in somewhere. So it's what we do. It's what we love.
Or if you have any suggestions on like future topics that you want to hear.
Yeah.
Future topics.
Yeah.
I won't talk about dogs though. I'm not a dog person.
You're excommunicated from this podcast.
Bye. Have a good week.
See you guys.
See ya.